Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. All right. Can I get an approval of the minutes of the meeting held on February 26th and March 7th, please?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. All right, we have one person wishing to address the board, and it's on an agenda item, so we'll wait until that time. And can I get an approval of the agenda, please?
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed, same sign. All right, good news report. Deanne.
And we will make that quick because we have important business to get on to tonight as we honor 91 teachers for their nominations as Teacher of the Year. 5 finalists were selected. 1 will be named the winner tonight of the 2018 Dr. John W. Harris Teacher of the Year Award. That winner will receive a $4,000 cash prize from Vern ID Motor Cars, who has sponsored that event for the past 3 decades. So we are grateful to Bruce Ide for his support, and we look forward to celebrating with our teachers in about an hour and a half. I also wanted to let you know that earlier today, the top 8 winners of the local Poetry Out Loud contest competed in South Dakota's state final, which was hosted today at Edison Middle School. 2 of the 8 students from across South Dakota are from Sioux Falls High Schools. Gage Gramlich represented Lincoln High School, while Phoebe Wallace represented Washington High School. The event was live streamed for interested viewers. It's also available on YouTube and will air on K-Learn TV, your Sioux Falls Classroom Connection. Poetry Out Loud is a program where students recite poetry and compete. It urges the teaching of poetry as an oral art form in the high schools. It's sponsored by the National Endowment for the Arts, the Poetry Foundation, and the South Dakota Arts Council. The state winner, who was selected today, Gage Gramlich from Lincoln High School, goes on then to the national finals next month. So congratulations to Gage and also to Phoebe Wallace for her representation of Washington High School. We fared quite well in a field of 8.
That's great. Thanks, Dan. Well, we are going to not rush through the meeting, but get through it fairly quickly so we can get to the Teacher of the Year reception later, an event that we all look forward to, I believe. So, fun night. All right, I didn't see any conflicts of interest this month. All right, can I get an approval of the consent agenda, please?
So move.
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, can I get a motion for the supplemental consent agenda, items 9A, claims to Sanford, please?
So move. Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, that passes with 2 abstentions from Board Member Ryder and Board Member Mickelson. Can I get a motion to approve the supplemental consent agenda claims to Avera?
So moved. Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, that passes from 1 abstention from myself. All right, moving on to the reports of the superintendent.
You are moving quite quickly. The first report tonight is a public hearing on a waiver of administrative rule. Here to give us that report is our secondary curriculum coordinator, Kristen Grunager.
Good evening. I have several waivers tonight, but I will try to go through them quickly.
It's okay. We're not totally rushed.
The first is to acknowledge the hard work that our Spanish immersion students do, and so we are asking for our 7th grade students to be eligible to receive high school credit for Spanish 2 by completing a district-created Spanish exam. And for our 8th grade students to be eligible to receive credit for Spanish 3 by scoring a 4 or higher on the nationally developed administered standards-based assessment, the Avant Stamp exam. The next two waivers stem from the fact that the state stopped offering some of the course equivalency exams last year, and two of the exams that were the most requested by students were World Geography and World History. And so we are asking that we be able to use our district-created semester exams for students to use in order to earn credit by equivalency. And then the final waiver is a renewal. It's a multi-course waiver. Typically when we get waivers from the state, they last for 5 years, and that waiver expires this year. And so that waiver is for Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, Physical Science, and Government. Okay, are there any questions?
Any questions?
I have a question on the
Sure.
first one that you referred to for the Spanish immersion. Do we know, I know last year the 8th graders and the 5th graders were the first ones to take the stamp exam. Do we know, is a 4, is that a normal score? Like what was the average score for 8th graders at that time?
So we looked at the scores of last year's students in 8th grade, and they all received a score of 4 or higher except for one student.
Okay.
So we felt confident
Sure.
in that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And we've got a person wishing to address the board on this issue. So if you'd come up and say your name and your address, and you've got 5 minutes.
Oh, I'll need way less than that, Kate. You run a very prompt meeting. I like it. I'm Angie Haft, and I live at 503 East 21st Street, just very close by here in McKinnon Park. I have 3 children in the Spanish immersion program, and I am thrilled to hear that they could potentially get credit for all this work. I have often thought it was kind of crazy that they could go through 9 years of speaking Spanish and end up with no credit for it. So I love the idea and only wish we had come to it a little sooner. So I thank you for considering it, and I encourage you to move forward with it. See, way less than 5 minutes, Kate.
Yep, thanks. All right, any questions or comments about the waivers? I think it's just another opportunity for our students at all levels. So appreciate the work that we put into getting those worked through with the Board of Education, the state level. So thank you.
I think we're fortunate in Sioux Falls that we have so many amazing classes outside of our required classes, that what this does is it allows students from, like you said, lots of different programs, lots of different interests to not just take their required classes in high school, but to actually be able to explore whether it's career exploration or additional sciences or maths or arts or orchestra and chorus and things like that that are so important to our students. And so by allowing them to finish some of those requirements before they get there, they can really enjoy and learn during their high school years. So benefit all around.
All right, well, can I get a motion and a second to approve the waivers, please?
So moved. Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, moving on.
Okay, our next report is a Social Studies Curriculum Adoption Report. Here to present this report is Ann Smith.
Good evening. The social studies curriculum adoption process began, as it always does, with a review of the standards. In this particular case, the 2015 South Dakota Social Studies Content Standards and the Ochetti-Shakoween Essential Understandings, which were adopted in 2012. Just some key changes to the South Dakota Social Studies standards. Those new standards included unified anchor standards, K-12, to ensure a vertical progression. They were based and incorporated the College Career and Civic Life Framework, which is a national framework called the C3 framework, as well as the South Dakota Literacy for History and Social Studies standards. Those were used to inform developmentally appropriate standards and outcomes throughout the social studies standards. Another change was aligning the high school economics course to a standalone course rather than integrating those standards throughout a separate course. And South Dakota history, according to the South Dakota content standards, now spans grades 3 through 5 instead of being solely taught during 4th grade. The Ocheti-Shakoween Essential Understandings were integrated by a group of Native American elders and social studies teachers at the state level with the disaggregated social studies content standards. So we had the ability to look back at that document to try to weave them through our standards. So the steering committee, which consists of community members, teachers, administrators, reviewed the standards and developed a philosophy, the why of why we teach and study social studies. Then the grade level committees come along and develop how we will teach, and they select what resources we'll use. And then finally, we determine how are we going to assess learning and evaluate how well the curriculum is helping our students learn what they need to learn. When the steering committee adopted the philosophy statement, the why statement, one of the key things is that we want our students to be actively engaged in research. We want them to be analyzing multiple perspectives of past and present events so that they gain an understanding of their place in and impact on their community, their nation, and the world. Through the study of geography, economics, history, and government, students become active and informed citizens prepared to succeed in a changing world. To be effectively implemented, the social studies curriculum requires that instruction is rigorous, reliable, relevant, and respectful, the 4 R's. Through active engagement with essential questions, students become critical thinkers who know their own history, respect multiple viewpoints, and are able to make connections between past and present events to form defendable perspectives for future decisions. The goals for this curriculum is that our students will demonstrate the knowledge and skills necessary to be responsible citizens, that they will gain an understanding of nations and cultures and how their own community, state, and nation fit into the global community, that students will apply basic economic literacy concepts to make sound decisions, and that students will engage in historical analysis using evidence to communicate cause and effect relationships and multiple perspectives of historical events. Throughout the social studies curriculum, we talk about essential questions. I thought it might be helpful to just take a minute to look at some examples of the essential questions that our students will be dealing with. An essential question is a thick question that encourages deep thought. It's a question that can't be answered with a single sentence. And I think if you look at these examples, which come from all 3 levels, you'll notice that elementary essential questions are not necessarily any easier than a high school essential question. One thing that will be unique with this adoption is the use of a soft implementation at the elementary level. Rather than have all of the nearly 500 elementary teachers implement the new standards and resources all at the same time, the members of the committees will complete a soft implementation of the new standards and purchased resources during the next school year, the 2018-19 school year. The committee members include a teacher from at least 1 classroom in every elementary school across the district. These teachers, with the assistance of elementary instructional coaches, will implement the new standards during the 2018-19 school year while watching out for any adjustments that may be needed to the timeline or instructional strategies suggested in the Essentials Guide. The committee will meet monthly throughout the school year to discuss how the implementation is going and learn together how they can best support teachers during the full implementation year in 2019-20. At the elementary level, much of what is accomplished in kindergarten and 1st grade will be done through daily routines, discussions, and activities that happen as part of a child's learning to function as a member of a community. In 2nd grade, the students will begin to ask crucial questions such as, if we live in the present, why should we care about the past? 3rd graders will study communities and how other communities compare and contrast with our community. In our Spanish immersion school, we'll have students comparing a community from a Latin American country or a Spanish community to Sioux Falls. We'll carry that forward in 4th grade so that students are looking at South Dakota, our Spanish immersion students will be comparing South Dakota to a region in Latin America or a region in Spain. And then finally, as fifth graders, students begin taking a broader view of the United States as a whole. And there again, our Spanish immersion students will be doing that compare and contrast with a country in Latin America to the United States. And throughout K-5, all of the students will be incorporating those Ocheti-Shakoween essential understandings to gain a better understanding of our own Native American community. As we move up through middle and high school, there'll be increasing interdisciplinarity. The goal of the middle school social studies curriculum is to develop students who are globally literate and who have the information and skills required to live in a world that is interactive and connected through technology. In addition to the middle school content strands of world history, world geography, and United States history, the curriculum will address literacy standards in social studies, as well as mathematics statistical standards and the Ocheti-Shakoween essential understandings. At the high school level, this interdisciplinarity continues. Students engage in more and more in research. Part of the review was to select appropriate databases to help facilitate that research in high school. One of those databases is called Issues, Understanding Controversy in Society. Through the themes in this database, students engage with current events and current happenings and can develop a greater understanding of the essential issues that are facing our society. This is a database that we actually started with the curriculum adoption in 2009, and it has proved so effective that we've continued it. A new database that makes me feel just a little grounded in history is NBC Learn. I'm used to thinking of primary source materials in history as print documents, the Constitution, things like that. Now, primary sources are news broadcasts, and NBC has developed this wonderful treasure trove of their news broadcasts over the years. So our students will be able to dig in and see those and understand and see history unfold. Finally, after all the materials are purchased, the curriculum's written, we have to know how is it that we're going to know that students have learned what it is we want them to learn. The committee has developed some suggested formative assessments that can be used along the way to guide instruction, as well as some of those summative assessments, those end of unit or end of semester assessments. And then, of course, at the high school level, those courses that are required for graduation will all have a semester test that has been updated to match the new curriculum. The list of materials is included in your report. The final amount comes to $2,025,818 for the general education budget and $238,369 for the special education budget, and this amount does include professional development. With that, I would ask that the board approve the recommended grades K through 12 social studies curriculum adoption, and I stand by for questions.
Thank you, Anne. Any questions?
I thank your committee and you for all the hard work on this, and I'm happy to see with having 3 recent middle school students that didn't have a textbook in middle school social studies to have textbooks implemented again. I think that's a helpful resource for the teachers and the students to have that, so thank you.
Right, any other questions?
Well, I'm glad to see so much emphasis being put on Native American studies. That, to me, is really important, especially in a state like South Dakota where there is that deep history, and I am confident that along with the studying of the history will be an elevated level of respect for our Native American population. So, thank you.
Okay. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the social studies curriculum update?
So move.
Second.
Right. Any further comments? Right. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, moving on.
Okay, our next report is a report on the Gallup Employee Engagement Survey. Here to deliver that report is Jamie Nold, our Assistant Superintendent in charge of Administrative Services.
Good evening. This report this evening is the 2017 Gallup Poll Employee Engagement Survey report. Gallup Poll Employee Engagement Survey is a research-based 12-question survey that gauges the engagement of our employees. It has a database of over 25 million, and one of the individuals from there had sent me a new update that it's now 26 million in their database that they utilize to have these research-based questions. The Sioux Falls School District has utilized Gallup Poll since 2014, and we administer the survey each year in December so that we stay consistent with the month and hopefully be able to gauge those results accordingly. Engaged employees work with passion, perform at consistently high levels, and move their organization forward. So the goal of the Sioux Falls School District is obviously to continually increase the number of engaged employees that we have, and we gauge that through the Gallup Poll. The questions that we utilize with the Gallup Poll survey that are research-based are 12. Of those, not to read each one, but just a few of which, I know what is expected of me at work. So employees that come to work and know what is expected of them on a daily basis. I have the materials and equipment I need to do my work right. And so that they have those resources at their hands that they can utilize within their classroom or for all our other employees as well, because this does include all employees of the Sioux Falls School District, so our support staff, our cook staff, our EAs, our custodians, and we'll go into some of those breakdowns as well here. So those are the 12 questions that they utilize in the Gallup Poll survey to assess the staff engagement. Some of the data, the 2017 results, to start with is first the participation rate. In 2015, we had an 83% participation rate. That went up last year to 87%, and this year we came in at 95% participation rate. So to set the stage, usually as that participation goes up, sometimes you see some of your data drop a little bit. We're happy to say quite a bit of that stayed the same in there, but we'll look at some of the numbers coming up here. The survey, as we go into the data, is on a 5-point scale. So each one of the questions are individually based on the 5-point scale. 5 means extremely satisfied, and 1 means extremely dissatisfied, and 0 indication they do not know. The data for the 2017, first of all, the engagement index. If you see in the top chart, that's the Sioux Falls School District over the past 3 years. The top level there is the actively engaged staff members, and we went from 2015 to 36% to 47% last year to 46% this year, so a drop in 1% there, which I'll show you coming up. Our standard mean, our mean for our school district stayed the same, which indicated that other school districts or other individuals that took the Gallup poll rose slightly, and we'll talk about that a little bit coming up. But that's the results for the Sioux Falls School District over the last 3 years. You can see our actively disengaged is a 12%, 8, and 9. You can compare that in the lower left corner there with the U.S. working population. The U.S. working population has the percent of 31, 32, and 33 over the past same 3 years for engaged employees, and 17, 17, and 16 for actively disengaged. And then we also looked at just the national educational services, so other educational institutions, and how we compared that way. And you can see the actively engaged was 41%, 43%, and 43%. So we were above each of those, especially these past 2 years that we have taken that Gallup poll engagement survey. The next area that we looked at was our category means for the past 3 years and those changes. First of all, if you see at the top, you can see the 2015, 16, and 17. Our end group are our individuals that took the survey. We went from 2,492 in 2015 to 2,935 now, and that indicates that 95% participation rate. Our grand mean for the past 2 years has stayed the same at 4.01. One nice thing, our overall satisfaction with the Sioux Falls School District, this is a separate question from the 12 that was added into it, increased slightly there, but has increased over each of the past 3 years. And this year that was at 4.01. And then you can see the individual scores there for each of the questions that were asked. And I always caution people, if you see, for example, and this will come up, in progress in the last 6 months. So as an individual employee received information and progress on how they're doing in the past 6 months, you see that's at 3.85. You cannot compare that to opportunities to learn and grow. They're two entirely different sets of questions, and it's based on people answer nationally on that individual question. So overall satisfaction was a 4.01. Our grand mean was 4.01, which stayed the same. And then you can see the individual scores as you go through there. And I'll show you how that ranks in our percentile ranking. So this chart that you see now will go through and indicate the percentile ranks for each one of those 12 questions. And you can see on the fourth one, our fifth one down, coworkers committed to quality, that was the one that was at the 51st percentile. That was our lowest ranking out of all 12 questions, which if you go down to do what I do best every day, so they have the ability to come to work and do what they do best every single day and have that opportunity, that ranked at the 80th percentile nationally. So all of our scores in there you can see are above the 50th percentile, which is a strong showing. And several of which are in the 70th, and then the one in the 80th percentile. And our goal, obviously, is with each one of those questions to look at areas to grow. Where's our strengths and what areas do we have to grow in? And I'll point those out coming up here as well. But that's breakdown of each one of the questions and how we rank nationally with those questions. The next slide here just kind of gives you a brief overview of our grand mean over the years. So you see this year's grand mean was at 4.01, and I put the percentile rank in there as well. That's at the 75th percentile. If you look at last year's grand mean, it was at 4.01 as well, so we stayed the same. But our percentile ranking dropped from the 81st to the 75th. So overall, the scores for the Gallup poll had increased nationally. We had stayed the same on ours, so that dropped our percentile ranking there. And then you can see in 2015, we're at the 33rd percentile rank at 3.83. If you compare that to the 50th percentile with National Educational Services, that was at 3.91, and then Gallup overall was at 3.92. So we're well above those two indicators, obviously shown by our 75th percentile and our 81st percentile for the last 2 years. This next slide will just show a few of the highlights or headlines from this last 2017 Gallup poll survey. We had a 95% participation rate by our staff. The Sioux Falls School District maintained their grand mean of 4.01. Overall mean for engagement is at the 75th percentile. Engagement ratio for 2017 is 5 to 1, and in 2016 it was 5.9 to 1. They also look at, from your percentiles and your ranking, how does your district look overall or your institution look overall as far as your engaged employees? And obviously that number, the higher it goes, the better that is. We're well above the national average, but we did drop down, and that's where you saw that percentile decrease from the 81st percentile to the 75th percentile. And so they utilize that to figure a ratio of your actively engaged to your disengaged. All areas were above the 50th percentile. Then the final slide that I'd referenced earlier, on this slide we look at strengths and opportunities. So here they identified two areas that were strengths of the Sioux Falls School District. Those two areas, first of all, the opportunity to do best. So each day when they come to work, our employees have the opportunity to be able to do what they do best in their job. That was at the 80th percentile, and it was up slightly from the year prior. And a best friend at work. We always question that question when we go in there, but when they come in and explain it, it does make sense that you have a place that you go to work each day that you enjoy, that there's other people you can talk with, confide in, share things with, share opportunities with. And it really does, when there's relationships, especially in a business like ours, relationships are very important, so that they have someone that can come and enjoy that time with. That was at 3.68, 73rd percentile, and it was up 0.06. Opportunities for growth, areas that we can continue to work on. Progress in the last 6 months, somebody giving an individual progress that they've had in the last 6 months on their job performance. That was at 3.85 and at the 63rd percentile, up 0.01. And then receiving recognition in the last 7 days. In some way, receiving some form of recognition, and that was at 3.48, 63rd percentile as well, and it was down 0.03 from the year prior. Next steps. Each year then we receive this information back, and we do have individuals from Gallup Poll come up and meet with our team. First of all, they meet in the morning in February with our district leadership team. And then there's 2 different times throughout the day that they will meet with our coordinators, our directors, or building principals, and go through that data with them and talk through what are the next steps when you look at your individual data that you can take or do within your buildings to be able to continue to move forward with our staff and employee engagement. Then they will follow up with individual phone calls and coaching sessions with each one of the building principals or directors just to talk through their specific data with them. And then finally, school leaders will include a goal specific to the Gallup poll results in their plans for 2018, 2019. So they'll include some type of a goal for their building or as a director for their staff that they oversee for the next school year. The recommendation to the board is to acknowledge the results from the Gallup Employee Engagement Survey administered in December of 2017. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Jamie. Any questions?
I have a couple of questions. Do we ever compare what the results look like from an engagement of an elementary staff member versus a middle school versus a high school? I know we've talked a lot about elementary scheduling and their challenges during the day, and so I'm just wondering if we see any sort of reflection of that in scores.
We do have it for every single elementary has their own results. Every middle school has their own results. So every principal, as long as there's a certain number of individuals they will have, otherwise Gallup does not give the results if it's below 10, I do believe it is. So each one of the building principals does have their individual results. As far as all elementary staff, we do not pull it as of there. We probably could get that information. There are some areas that we do because we may not know per se with EAs. EAs as a whole group. We do break some of that down so that we would know with our EA staff in the elementary, middle school, high school.
Sure.
But some of the other numbers, as you're saying there, we do not break down. We probably can get that data.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there were any
Yeah.
themes, you know,
Yeah.
when you pull certain groups out, if you say, wow, this is really bringing our number up,
Yeah.
or this is really bringing our number down, and some focused initiatives for those levels.
We do. Now, when they did go through data with us, they did identify, so they have our teachers as a group overall. And our teachers group was very strong. The area that we have areas for improvement, and we did discuss with our administrators, was our support staff. Our custodial staff, our EAs, cook staff. That's an area that if we did nothing but draw that group up, it would increase our scores immensely. So it is a focus area for our district. It's a focus area that we've talked through with our building principals, and when the 2 individuals from Gallup Poll came up and spoke with us, it was something that was very easily identifiable, that it is our support staff. So they do have them broken out by groups like that, the support staff, educational support staff, our cook staff, our custodial staff. And so our teachers do score very high, our administrators high, but that was a focus area with our support staff.
Sure. And then you mentioned that each individual building principal gets their own individual results. So what is the expectation of principals then? Do they share the specific results of their building with all of staff at a staff meeting, and they come up with an idea then? Is it just a leadership team, or is that different from every building?
The expectation is they go back to each of their buildings, or if they're not at a building, if they're a director, that they share these individual results with all staff.
Okay.
All staff that they would oversee and that would participate in that. So that would include their EAs, their cook staff, their custodial staff, as well as their teachers and others in their building. So they would go back and share that with each and all. We do look at that as well as one of the scores. It's not reported on here, But part of that is, did you or do you know what the results are from the year before? Were you informed of that information? So that is one of the things that we also can add in, and we look at that to see if those staff remember. Now, some said that, they went back and shared it right away. Some may not recall that because it's half a year away from where they're at right now. So the encouragement was in the fall as well to go through some of that, and then what are the goals you're working on for that next year so that it stays fresh in the minds of the employees.
And I'm just thinking if we wait until fall to implement goals, with the number of staff members that move from building to building, I think it may be difficult to engage some of those people in the results from the prior year if there were shifts in people who have different feelings or different. So I didn't know like the timing of how that worked since it was taken in December. I know we just got the results back in February, but.
So they do go back to the buildings and share that information, and the encouragement is that they would share it again in the fall. So those staff that would be there currently at this time and then next year as well.
Thank you.
We also never want this to be a one-shot item, so it's an ongoing professional development opportunity. We'll also ask our supervisors to put together an action plan for the coming year as well. I suspect they'll weave that into their school improvement plan, although that won't be a requirement.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Other questions?
All right. Seeing none, thanks. Jamie, can I get a motion and a second to approve or to acknowledge the results from the Gallup Engagement Survey?
So moved.
Second. I would just like to say, getting 95% to take the survey is amazing. I'm involved in an engagement survey right now at work, and it's really hard to get 95% participation, so I think that's incredible. Not sure what kind of incentives are being given out.
We were actually probably at about 70%, and then somebody on our staff put out a series of emails kind of really encouraging involvement.
Yep.
It might have been the guy who gave the report tonight.
Well, I think I commend you for doing that. I think, the more people we have take the survey, the better the information we have and the data we have. So I think that is key, and drilling the information down to the building level so that the building administrators can work with their staff on what's most important to their building, because we know each building is going to be different. So to be able to give that power or that opportunity to our building administrators is really great as well. So I think it's a great survey. I'm glad we've been doing it. I'm glad we've been able to track the data that we've had over the last 3 years. And again, that 95% is awesome. Any other comments? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right. Next.
Our next report is a community engagement meetings, is a 2018 legislative wrap-up. Here to give that sorry, I threw you a curveball there, huh? Here to give that report is Todd Veek.
Thank you. The main run of the 2018 legislative session is over. Schools received a 1% increase in both the general and special education formulas right at the end of the session. Additionally, schools received one-time money equal to 0.7% that will be paid to districts in the current school year. So in addition to those state aid bills, the district tracked 70 bills, and 10 of those were considered key bills. As you know, we went over those over the past 6 weeks. Of the key bills, the district supported 1 and opposed 8, and a ninth bill was originally opposed, but the district position became neutral when it was amended the way we wanted it to be amended. The amended bill was restraint and seclusion, and the one bill that passed gave patriotic societies the right to present information in schools. All the other key bills failed. The administrative recommendation is to acknowledge the report on the 2018 legislation as presented.
Okay. Thanks, Todd. Any questions for Todd?
I know it's a lot of work to track all that and keep it all straight, so thank you for kind of giving us the Cliff Notes version.
Sure. And Bev's the one that
Thanks, Bev.
keeps track of where they're all at.
Well, we know she does all the hard work, Todd. And all the staff that, all the administrators that participate and track these bills, thank you. It's a lot to keep track of, so appreciate having you all do it for us, so. All right, any other questions or comments? Can I get a motion and a second to approve the 2018 legislative wrap-up?
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, any other comments? No, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Okay.
Our final report of the evening is a community engagement meetings update. Here to give that report is our Director of Research, Innovation, and Accountability, Doug Morrison.
Good evening, Board of Education, Dr. Maher and Business Manager Veek. As you're aware, the dialogue with our community regarding our future facility needs has begun. And so I'm here to really update you on 3 things that we're diligently working on. One would be the community engagement feedback, 2, the task force, and then 3, the survey. So starting with the community engagement process, we ran into a little bit of bad weather, and so we had originally scheduled meetings for March 5th and 6th, and I think knowing that we wanted to get as many people out for these as possible, we figured the best course was just to cancel those and to reschedule them, and so that's what we have done. And so now we still have 3 sessions scheduled, one being March 26th at noon, 1:30 here at IPC. And based on some feedback that we had received, we decided to put one in a day because we know that there's people out there in the community that can't come during the evening. So we decided to move one to the daytime. So we're excited about that. There'll be another meeting on March 26th at 7 o'clock at Lincoln High School. And then the final one being March 27th at 7 p.m. at Roosevelt High School. And the agenda for those is really a presentation by Dr. Maher on some of the things that we're seeing in the district with regards to enrollment and facilities. And Joe Donovan will be at a couple of those to help facilitate that. And then really the point of that is to get to the community to see what's on their mind as far as things that they want the board and the task force to consider. We also decided to add 2 separate meetings for district staff. And so we actually had one of those last week at Patrick Henry, and that went really well. It allowed us to kind of give a dry run through of our presentation and then get feedback from staff that may be a little different from the community. And so that went really well. And then we have the second one scheduled for this week. So we'll be taking that information and giving that back to you as a board and also the task force as to things we heard from the staff. And so overall, those were very good meetings. Next, on to the task force. The task force, as we envision it now, will be about a 30-person task force. And so we have begun taking applications for that. I think when I checked with Deanne on Friday, we were up over 40 applications online being submitted, so we're very pleased with the response to that. But the first part of the task force is really to find a couple of co-chairs. The co-chairs is, we are blessed with leadership, strong leadership in this community, but we know there's going to be a lot of heavy lifting with the task force, and so the co-chairs are going to have to wear a lot of hats. They're going to have some leadership capabilities. They're going to have to be maybe wear the hats of parents and really well-rounded people. And so based on your recommendations to us and to Dr. Maher, there were really, I think, 2 people that rose to the top as far as people that we thought would be excellent choices to chair the task force. And so Dr. Maher reached out to those 2 people, and happy to tell you that we can name co-chairs tonight. One is Nan Baker. Nan is a community and school volunteer and a Bush Foundation fellow who successfully led the Sioux Falls Art Council in town. And the other being Vernon Brown, former city councilor, community advocate, and a marketing professional with SDN Communications. Vernon was back here. It looks like he escaped. So, but really, I think that really helps solidify the task force, and now, our goal is really to put a committee together that will be diverse in demographics and thought. And so we will work over the next 30 days, or not 30 days, really 2 weeks, along with you to finalizing that 30-person task force so we can move on with that. The meetings have been publicized as part of choosing a task force. We wanted them to know what dates they would be having to free their calendars to participate. So those dates are April 16th, April 30th, May 16th, and May 30th. We're thinking from 5:30 to 8 o'clock at this point. And those meetings will also be open to the public, at least to come and view and hear what's being discussed at the task force. And then we have put a lot of emphasis on transparency around those meetings, so there'll be minutes, all the presentations, materials that are given to the task force will also be provided online for the public. So we're excited to kick that process off. And then finally, I would say the survey is currently being developed with our help from our consultant, Joe Donovan and the Donovan Group. So we are envisioning that will be really launched around the May 1st timeframe. Again, we will be making that survey available to you and the task force before it rolls out to the community to make sure that we are asking all the questions that you guys are interested in, as well as the task force. So you'll be hearing more about that in the coming weeks as well. So I guess all said, we're well on our way, but just wanted to give you those updates on those three things. So I would stand by for questions.
Thanks for the update, Doug. Any questions?
I don't know if you had to do any arm twisting on the task force co-chairs, Dr. Maher, or not, but I think they're great selections.
I think the twisting was done before I made the call.
All right. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the community engagement update?
So moved.
Second?
Any comments? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Pose same sign. Okay. This. Let me see. Do I just make a motion to?
Yeah, we don't have to read that whole motion, but you've got the names in front of you.
My computer's not working.
Hopefully those work.
I think we've all seen the schedule, so.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll just get, can I get a motion to appoint the school board members, all of us, to the Board of Equalization?
So move.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same sign. Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? As we race off to CJ Callaway's. All right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.